Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Utility Sports. Today, we are continuing with our Monday mock draft rendition for the NFL Draft. With me, I have NFL Draft expert Austin Host. And before we jump into today's video, I just want to remind all of you to hit that subscribe button. It's absolutely free to you. We've been growing rather quickly. We really appreciate all of our subscribers. So if you are already subscribed, we want to thank you in advance. We just did hit 700 subscribers today, which is a pretty big milestone for us, and we're continuing to grow. So we really appreciate it, and we don't want you guys to miss out on any of the content. So if you aren't subscribed, make sure you hit that button. And now jumping in to the first overall selection, we have the New York Jets. We did just do a individual team mock draft. That'll be up in the cards right here. And the Jets are coming off what is kind of a disastrous loss, but could be a good thing for their franchise long term. Obviously, defensive coordinator Greg Williams got fired today after an all-out blitz on a end of the game situation that led to a Henry Ruggs 46-yard touchdown and the eventual loss for the New York Jets. Quite a disastrous loss, Austin. Walk us through your thoughts on that quick.
That loss was atrocious from a Jets perspective, but looking at it for their franchise, this was basically a 20-year worth of Jets football all wrapped into one game. Because if they would have won this football game, the Jacksonville Jaguars likely would have secured Trevor Lawrence, with the strength of schedule being the difference for them. Even though they had the same record, it would come down to Jacksonville having the number 1 overall pick rather than the number 2 overall pick, which is, we figure it's going to be one or the other for the number 1 pick, but it just depends on the order. So for the New York Jets, that was really, really, good that Greg Williams sent that pretty much all-out blitz. And it's just, you can't really even put it into words how much of a disaster that looked just from a football perspective. And, the Jaguars for about, a minute thought they had Trevor Lawrence possibly, and that obviously didn't work out. So anyway, with the first overall pick, Trevor Lawrence is the selection for the Jets.
Yeah, I think that's probably the no-brainer. I think every single mock draft will start that way. Whoever has pick 1 will end up with Trevor Lawrence. And it is possible that it is Jacksonville still. Obviously, the Jets did lose, but if the Jets do manage to win one game down the stretch here, and the Jaguars lose out, that is still possible that the Jacksonville Jaguars could be looking at Trevor Lawrence as their QB. But at this point, it is still the Jets' spot to lose. So moving into number 2 here now, Austin, where do you have your Jacksonville Jaguars going?
So for the Jags here at number 2, I think Justin Fields will be the selection still. A lot of people think that he's the second best quarterback in the class. I am one of the people in those camp that think he is the second best quarterback. And for Jacksonville, it's all about the youth movement. They have the youngest roster in the NFL. You add him at quarterback, and then I think that you're going to look into exploring some trade options with Gardner Minshew. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of draft pick capital they get back from Minshew, but they're really hurting it right now with his overall value by placing him on the bench willingly behind Mike Glennon. And so for the Jaguars, that's not going to be a good situation. I think they're going to lose significant value because last year he might have been valued as high as a second-round pick to some people. So at this point, I think he's probably has late third, early fourth-round value with where it currently stands.
Yeah, he definitely has lost some of that trade value in the marketplace. But Jacksonville here grabbing Fields at 2 gives them the dynamic quarterback option, something to build around long-term. Obviously, they have another first-round selection this year as well as 2 second-rounders, so they are in good hands when it comes to draft pick capital. And could be really looking to improve that roster. I think they're in a little bit better of a situation than the New York Jets are when it comes to long-term. They've already got a little bit more infrastructure in place than the Jets do, but obviously Trevor Lawrence is that much better than Justin Fields that we think that getting that number 1 pick is of utmost importance. Going into number 3 now, the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that did have a little bit of hope going through this year with Joe Burrow at quarterback. He had kind of really propelled them forward as a team. Obviously, his injury and ACL tear kind of locks him into this number 3 spot, probably in a lot of different ways. Austin, where do you think the Bengals are going, and do you think it's to help Joe Burrow?
I think once again, it's to help Joe Burrow, and it's really important for the Bengals offensive line. because you need to get a tackle in place for Joe Burrow. Jonah Williams has played really well this year. We're going to have them select Sewell from Oregon. But the thing that really impresses me about Sewell is he's really good in the run game. He's a tenacious blocker. But he does have really, really good footwork in the pass game. You put on the tape of him, he can move really well for his size. But the thing that really sticks out on the film for him is the run blocking. He's able to get to the second level, get to the linebackers to set up the bigger runs. Like, he is just an all-out mauler at the tackle position.
Yeah, you're looking at a big building block there, something that we saw the New York Jets grab with Mekhi Becton. And Sewell, I think, is even more of a surefire selection here at 3. You know, you're going to be really confident with him either at the left tackle or right tackle, depending on if they feel like moving Jonah Williams or not. But either way, you're looking at a much improved Bengals offensive line just after that selection. Going into pick number 4 here now, a team that could be looking offensive tackle, coming off a disastrous blowout loss to the New England Patriots. Quite frankly, was not a good showing for head coach Anthony Lynn or that organization. Obviously, they said today that there's no coaching change imminent, but by the end of the year, we could see Anthony Lynn possibly out. Does that factor into the selection here, Austin, and where do you have them going?
I think I'm not exactly sure if it's going to factor into the whoever the coach is at this point. I think that it's really important that they do replace Melvin Ingram, who is in his contract year, and I'm almost sure that they will not want to pay going into next season because he's going to look for a longer term deal because he is older, wants to secure the bag. So I'm going to actually have them go Gregory Rousseau. This has been a common pick for us because I really like him replacing Melvin Ingram on the line. You got to keep that defensive line, which is one of your strengths, intact, and having Bosa on one side and Rousseau on the other, that's going to be dangerous for years to come.
Yeah, you're looking at a team improving their salary cap flexibility by moving off of Ingram, a player that's going to be much more expensive than Rousseau in his rookie deal. And opens up some money to improve in other areas on defense. You could be looking at a linebacker possibly in free agency, or possibly that offensive line through free agency as well. Now at number 5, we have the Dallas Cowboys. Just got some breaking news during this recording, actually, that All-Pro guard Zach Martin is out for the rest of the year. He got put on IR with a calf injury. And quite frankly, they've been a team that's been beat up all year. We saw Dak Prescott's injury. Their offensive line outside of Zach Martin had been banged up. Defensively, they haven't been healthy. Austin, Cowboys have quite an interesting situation on their hands with Dak Prescott. Do you think that there's any chance they look at a quarterback through this process, or do you think they're going to operate under the idea that Dak Prescott will be their QB next year?
I think they're going to kind of operate under that idea. I think Jerry Jones is going to keep Dak Prescott around. He's given a lot to the team, and I think they're going to kind of reward him with the longer-term contract despite the injury. I think they're going to go to the defensive side of the ball, and they're going to get Patrick Surtain from Alabama. He's a lengthy man-to-man corner. He's going to be able to fit really well on the other side of Diggs. And just for Dallas's sake, you need to shore up that secondary. Like they lost Byron Jones, obviously, in free agency. Haven't really been able to replace that. But getting Surtain with the 5th pick is a good selection. You're getting a man-to-man corner that's going to fit really, really well into that Dallas's defense.
Yeah, definitely. Surtain, across from Trayvon Diggs, you're looking at 2 lengthier corners like you had mentioned. And I think for Cowboys fans, it's important to note we're not doing trade down situations here in this mock draft. It's just a little too early for that with how fluid the draft order is at this point yet. There's not really any sure spot where you're like, oh, this team's going to jump another team. So at this point, we're just not doing trade downs. But Dallas would be a team that would be benefited by moving down a couple spots possibly and accruing more assets to kind of fill out the rest of their roster. Now jumping into division rival Philadelphia Eagles here, a team that just introduced Jalen Hurts as quarterback this past game on Sunday, as he took a majority of the snaps in the second half. Played really well, actually, in the 4th quarter, specifically through 2 touchdowns. Austin, do you see Hurts as the long-term QB there, and do we see Wentz possibly moving on, and where do you have them going at 6?
Yeah, it's really hard with the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know exactly what they're going to do at their quarterback situation because you have Carson Wentz, who has not played well all year, but there was a point in his career where he was the front runner for an MVP. Let's not forget the year that Tom Brady won it. I think Carson Wentz very well could have won it that year if he hadn't gotten hurt. And for the Philadelphia Eagles at that point, we're going to just be under the assumption that they stay with one of those 2 guys. And I think that getting a weapon for whoever is that quarterback next year is really important. Jamar Chase is going to be the selection. He's a dynamic receiver. He can run the route tree to its entirety, and he's a really, really good foundational piece for the offense. They drafted Rager last year. You add Chase this year. Really gives Philly a great weapon on offense for whoever is the starting quarterback. There's a lot to be determined throughout the rest of the season to figure out who's going to be their quarterback going into next season.
Yeah, we heard reports out of Philadelphia that the scouting department there was really high on Justin Jefferson, obviously the LSU receiver that came out last year. They ended up passing on Jefferson. This time, they do not pass on the LSU receiver in our mock and go ahead and grab Jamar Chase. We think he's the best receiver in the class, and I think that's a home run pick there. Now jumping into number 7, the Carolina Panthers, a team that many in our comments believe that they need to address quarterback. We think that's a possibility, but at this point, I don't think we're going that direction yet. I think that that number 1 team need there is where we're looking.
Yeah, so they haven't been able to necessarily replace Luke Kuechly. I think Panther fans would agree that they do need a linebacker as well. In addition, I think Micah Parsons is a phenomenal fit here. He's a versatile linebacker. He used to actually be a defensive end, and he switched to linebacker. So he gives you versatility from rushing the passer, being a sideline to sideline linebacker. He does a great job filling in holes in the run game as well. So I really like that selection for Carolina. I understand the want for a quarterback, but you have a phenomenal talent in Micah Parsons here. He could be a top 5 talent in the entire class. This guy is that good.
Yeah, definitely the departure of Luke Kuechly, something that was a little surprising to us last year when he announced his retirement. And now you see them going out, addressing that linebacker spot. Jeremy Chin's been a real bright spot for them. Derek Brown plugging that D tackle spot. Now you're really solid up the middle. You've got a D tackle, linebacker, safety trio that are going to be, forces for the next 5 to 10 years for sure for Carolina. I really like that fit, and I think that that's something that could really propel Carolina's defense, which has struggled a little bit this year. Going into pick number 8 now, for our Atlanta fans, we have the Falcons on the clock, a team that has blown quite a few late leads this year. Younghoe Koo's been a bright spot for them at kicker. Obviously, Todd Gurley's kind of up in the air with his situation. In the second round, they could maybe be looking running back. It kind of depends how we see that. We will be having a second round mock coming right after this video, probably tomorrow on Tuesday, debuting. So if you guys want to stay in tune for that, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But Austin, where do you have the Falcons going 8?
For the Atlanta Falcons, it's been pretty consistent this year for me because it's going to be interesting to see where Matt Ryan is and where they feel that he is as a quarterback for them. But they really have to address something that's been very prevalent for need for them, and that's Kwity Paye, the edge from Michigan. They need an edge rusher. They need to replace some of the guys that they've lost, like Vic Beasley, like McKinley. There's a lot of need for them to get an edge, and I think it really makes sense at number 8 because Paye is a really nice player, and for Atlanta to get him at 8, you feel pretty good about that selection.
Yeah, like you said, the Falcons have been kind of reaching out for an edge for the last few years or so now, and now I think that getting Paye at 8 is the piece that they need to really bolster that defense, get some more pressures on the QB, and also just improve their pass rush overall. Going into pick number 9 now, this pick comes from the Houston Texans, who just lost to the Indianapolis Colts in a heartbreaking fashion. But now we see the Miami Dolphins here. This pick came from the Laramie Tunsil trade, and a team that we had mocked Jamar Chase here a couple times. With him off the board now at this point, where do you see them going?
We're going to have them go Jalen Waddle. They're going to go another dynamic receiver in the draft. Obviously, he had his ankle injury. He's out for the entire season. But what really stands out is watching his crossing route concepts is he is so phenomenal with that. He can run away from guys. He's an explosive receiver. And he's going to work perfectly with Tua in that offense. Obviously, you pair the Alabama guys back together. It's going to be a dynamic duo for years to come.
Yeah, definitely looking at Tua's strengths, really throwing back across the middle, an accurate QB, and now adding Jalen Waddle into that offense, something that really complements Devontae Parker well. And you're looking at the Dolphins being one of the teams with the quickest rising floor and high rising ceiling as we continue through the draft process. At number 10 now, the Washington football team is on the clock, and Ron Rivera probably needs his quarterback. You're looking at the Alex Smith show at this point. Dwayne Haskins really hasn't worked out there, and I think Washington's looking at QB again. Austin, which QB do you have them going?
For me, it comes down to a couple of guys. Trey Lance and Zach Wilson are definitely options at this point. And I think Zach Wilson better fits what Washington's trying to do. Obviously, he's more similar to Alex Smith in terms of play style, but I mean, he's a very, very accurate quarterback. He's a guy that can move around in the pocket, pick up yards on the ground as well. And I really like Zach Wilson's fit with Washington. You're pairing him with McLaurin, and that's going to be a really dynamic duo as well. So you're going to get the young rookie quarterback with this, up and coming star receiver in Terry McLaurin. I think it makes all the sense in the world for Washington to get Zach Wilson.
Yeah, they're definitely making a big stride there, taking Wilson, a player that's really emerged as of late onto the scene, a guy that not many had as a top 10 selection coming into the year, but he's really played his way in here, and he deserves to be a top 10 pick with how he's played. Kind of similar to Joe Burrow with his ascension, and at this point, now we're seeing Wilson go 10 to the Washington football team. Jumping into pick 11 here, we have the Denver Broncos, led by Vic Fangio, a team that obviously had the issue at quarterback with Kendall Hinton playing a couple weeks ago, and a team that has quite a few different needs. They could use an edge rusher. They could use a cornerback, a lot of different directions that they could go. Austin, which way do you have them leaning at this point?
So I know a lot of Bronco fans are going to say that they want a quarterback. We've heard the noise about that. I think we're going to address their biggest need right now, and that's going to be the cornerback position. Caleb Farley is going to be the pick. Caleb Farley is another one of those corners, similar to Surtain in terms of size, speed, athleticism in general. The really unfortunate thing for Farley is he was an opt-out. That very well could have just kept his stock where it is, or he could have risen even higher in the draft. But I mean, he played it safe, and he's going to be a top 15 pick in this year's class. So I think overall he made the right decision by opting out of the season this year.
Yeah, you're looking at a long-term replacement option for AJ Boye. Obviously, the Broncos, a team that wants to be competitive, hasn't been for a little while, and I think Farley could be a selection that helps them get back on that track of competition. Going into pick 12 now, we have the Detroit Lions. We have a lot of Lions fans as well in our comments, and quarterback is a position that they've been interested in, but I don't think we have them going there at this point. Austin, where do you have the Lions going at 12?
Yeah, it's a very tough decision for the Detroit Lions. It all depends on what's the decision with Matt Stafford, what management and the new coach is going to think about Matt Stafford as a whole. Obviously, Darrell Bevell did a nice job yesterday in that Detroit Lions win. Matt Stafford played particularly well. But for the Detroit Lions, it's really tough. Marvin Jones is in his final year of his contract, so we're actually going to go Devontae Smith from the University of Alabama. We're going to be under the assumption that they keep Matt Stafford next year. It really depends. I think a trade to the Colts would be something that's very, very interesting for Matt Stafford. But for the time being, if they don't re-sign Marvin Jones, I think Devontae Smith is a home run pick for them. Him and Kenny Golladay would be a phenomenal wide receiving duo for Matt Stafford. And then you pair that with DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, we have Smith as the third receiver going here in our class, and he's just been really balling out lately. I believe he had 270 yards this past week, 3 touchdowns. And this has been a weekly trend for him now at Alabama. He's really emerged as a top-tier wide receiver and a guy who might even continue to play himself higher and higher in the draft board if he continues to play at this rate. Now, moving into 13, division rival, the Chicago Bears. Obviously, the Lions just beat the Bears last night, like you had mentioned, Austin. Where do you have the Bears going? Obviously, QB could be a position of need.
I think quarterback's the biggest need for the Chicago Bears. Trey Lance from North Dakota State is going to be the selection. You're going to definitely need a quarterback. Obviously, we've tried the Trubisky thing. That hasn't worked. You tried the Nick Foles thing. That hasn't worked, unfortunately. But you have to get a quarterback. And Trey Lance, he's got a really, really nice arm on top of it. And he's able to, once he gets outside the pocket, I mean, he's a pretty nice runner with the football. The problem with him is he never knows to slide. So he takes a lot of hits because he's fighting for extra yards. But at the NFL level, you're going to want to clean that up a little bit. But the really lively arm, and he doesn't turn over the football. He didn't have any interceptions last year, and this year he's only played in 1 game, so you can't really make a determination on turnovers that way because it's only been 1 game. But last year didn't turn over the ball, and I think if you're a Bears fan, you just want a quarterback that will not turn it over. So Trey Lance will be the selection.
Yeah, Lance definitely gives them that dynamic quarterback option, something that could be really beneficial in Matt Nagy's system. That's what we saw in Trubisky that first year that Nagy came to town, and now you're taking Trubisky and improving him into a better quarterback, a player that's a little bit more dynamic and will take care of that football like you had mentioned. Going into 14 now, we have the San Francisco 49ers, another team that could really be looking quarterback. Obviously, the Jimmy Garoppolo situation, we'll see how that kind of plays out. They could release him or trade him and basically incur zero dead money, something rare in a quarterback contract. But there's a lot of different directions they could go to. We saw Richard Sherman this week saying that he doesn't expect to be back with the San Francisco 49ers next year as his contract ends. That's obviously something that to monitor and would really impact their draft decision here. Is cornerback where you have them going?
I actually don't have them going cornerback just yet. I think maybe in a later mock that we could have them taking a cornerback in like the second round, but I think they are going to address quarterback considering Jimmy Garoppolo has not worked out there. So I will have them go Kyle Trask from Florida. Kyle Trask is on pace to throw the most touchdowns in SEC history, possibly if he were to have the full season. He's up there in terms of college football touchdowns, period, with guys like Colt Brennan from Hawaii when he had that crazy season, over a decade ago. And he's just played really, really well. And he's got a lot of nice weapons around him, but I think he is a quarterback worthy of being a top 15 selection.
Yeah, you're definitely some of our comments seem to be a little bit less high on Kyle Trask. He's really emerged this year, though, honestly. His combination with Kyle Pitts, a player that we'll see probably go in the next few picks here, has been dynamic this year. He's really played himself into a first-round selection in many's eyes, and I definitely agree with the selection here at 14. Going into 15 now, however, we have the Arizona Cardinals, a team coming off of a loss here this past week to the LA Rams now at this point. And quite frankly, a team that's been a little up and down this year. We've seen them, picking as low as 22. We've seen them picking as high as, I believe, 12. They've just been a little up and down and inconsistent. Need to improve their pass rush, especially with Chandler Jones out at this point. And, you don't really know what the future holds for him. They could also be looking in the secondary. I think defense is probably the big need there for them. Where do you have the Cardinals going at 15?
So for the Arizona Cardinals, it's going to be replacing an upcoming free agent in Marcus Golden. We're going to go Joseph Osai from Texas. He's one of the top edge rushers in terms of forced fumbles in the entire nation. I think he's fourth in the nation in forced fumbles, and he's definitely going to be a guy that you bring in and try to improve that defense because the offense is pretty good as a whole, but just trying to fix that defense a little bit. You get an edge rusher, which is kind of a pressing need for the Cardinals. I think for Arizona, getting Osai is good value here at 15.
Yeah, definitely. You're looking at that improvement at that edge position, one of the most important positions in all of football. And the Cardinals take advantage of that by grabbing Osai at 15. Going into 16 now, the New England Patriots, with Kyle Trask going 14 to the San Francisco 49ers, it could be possible that Jimmy Garoppolo returns to New England under head coach Bill Belichick. Obviously, Belichick really liked him when he was there. Austin, is that what you see happening?
I think that's a very real possibility. I think if they cut ties with Jimmy Garoppolo, he's going to go back to New England possibly. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Cam Newton. I'm really not sure, and I don't know if Bill Belichick necessarily believes in Jarrett Stidham long term either. So I think a Garoppolo reunion would be really big because Bill Belichick was pushing for Garoppolo for quite some time, and getting him at a low value contract, maybe a 1-year prove-it contract for him. I see that really working out for New England. So in order to really make that work, you're going to want to get him an elite tight end. Kyle Pitts, who is a top 10 worthy selection, is going to be the pick here for New England at 16.
Yeah, Austin, walk us through Kyle Pitts, kind of what he brings on the football field and where you see him overall as a prospect in this class, kind of rank him there.
Yeah, so in terms of prospect, where you see him, he's definitely a top 10 talent in the class. It was just hard with some of the other teams ahead of him because we had some quarterback needy teams, quite a few of them. Like Detroit, they obviously have Hawkinson, though, so that wasn't going to be a fit. But I think he is a top 10 talent, and he's vertically explosive. He can get up the field. But one of the other things, I rewatched some more of his tape. I mean, he can really high point the football, and even double covering him does not work. This guy is going to be a matchup nightmare in the future for teams.
And with the Patriots, obviously, at this point of the draft, also didn't really have a lot of quarterback options there for them with already, I believe, was that 4 of them already had gone up to this point. So you're looking at the Patriots really not having an option there at QB. And now jumping into pick 17, we have the Baltimore Ravens, a team that could be looking safety with the Earl Thomas departure. Obviously, it's been one of their weaker points in their defense. Also, edge could be a positional need with Matthew Judon and his contract situation, but also offensive line. We've seen some injuries there for them, especially on the right side of that line. Could really bolster that up, protect Lamar Jackson, improve their run game, obviously something they're really built on. Where do you have the Ravens going?
So I'm actually going to have them go in the interior of the offensive line, Wyatt Davis from Ohio State. I watched Wyatt Davis's film. He's definitely one of those maulers. He's probably the strongest guard in this class, and he's a really, really good run blocker. He's going to be proficient in the pass game, but the big strength for him is in the run. So why not pair Wyatt Davis with the Ravens, who love to run the football? I think this pick is, an A in terms of fit for the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, for the past 3 years now, we've seen the Ravens leading the league in rushing percentage. They run the ball more than any other team in the league, and getting that power interior offensive lineman makes a lot of sense for them. Jumping into pick 18 now, a team that kind of struggles in the trenches a little bit more than a team like Baltimore does, especially the defensive trench. You're looking at a team that doesn't get a lot of pressures, both from the interior D-line positions and the edge positions. Austin, where do you have the Las Vegas Raiders going after a narrow escape against the New York Jets?
Yeah, that was close. That was a very, very close game, and you could not drop that if you're the Raiders because you're in the playoff hunt. You can't lose to the Jets, obviously, and they came very, very close to it. Derek Carr made a beautiful throw to bail them out of that game ultimately. But for the Raiders, you need to get some more pressure up front. And Jay Tufele is going to do that. You're going to put him with Maurice Hurst at the defensive tackle position. Obviously, they could be looking edge because Cleveland Farrell has not worked out. And I think Tufele fits in really nicely alongside of Hurst once he gets back. And I think the Raiders could be, looking a lot better on the interior, their defensive line next year.
Yeah, definitely Vegas is going to be addressing that D-line position, whether it be edge or interior D-line. And that's something also to watch for in our second round that'll come out in the next day or so, monitoring the Raiders, where we have them going on day 2 of the NFL draft. Now at pick 19, the New York Giants, a team that has played themselves into a playoff spot, albeit a little unconventional at a 5-7 record, leading that NFC East division. That division is still up for grabs a little bit, but they cemented themselves a little bit ahead with the win over the Seahawks yesterday. Where do you see the Giants going, assuming they stick around this 19 spot?
Yeah, I think, referring back to some of our other mock drafts, I think it's important to get Daniel Jones more weapons because it seems like they are pretty sold that he is their quarterback of the future. And I think you do that by bringing in Rashad Bateman from Minnesota. Definitely, he's not the most dynamic athlete, but he's one of the best route runners in the entire class. He's a big play receiver. Last season, he had 19 yards per reception. He's a big play guy. He's a guy that can make some plays happen. He's really good with the double move. And for the Giants, and in their perspective, you get a guy you can replace Golden Tate and bring in Bateman, who's going to be a lot better than Tate was this year.
Yeah, you're looking at a really strong wide receiving trio there then for the New York Giants with Bateman, Shepard, and Slayton. Something that a lot of teams are going to have trouble matching up with, especially in that division. The Washington football team rather needs to, make some adjustments to their cornerback situation. The Cowboys, obviously, we mocked them a cornerback, and here the Giants are staying ahead of the curve. They're taking another offensive weapon for Daniel Jones. At pick 20, we have the Minnesota Vikings, a team that just came up over a narrow win over the Jacksonville Jaguars in overtime on a game-winning field goal. And now they find themselves at 20 in a playoff position. At this point, they would be representing a wild card spot. Where do you have the Vikings going?
So I have them going Elijah Vera Tucker. And the reason for this is, Ezra Cleveland has done a really nice job at the right guard spot, but ultimately your end goal, you wanted to have him be a left tackle for you. And I think Vera Tucker allows you to do that because Vera Tucker is a very consistent guard. He can play left guard, and I think he can play right guard. He's better suited as a left guard, but he's a consistent blocker. He's not elite at either the run or the pass, but he is very consistent with both in both situations. So I really like that selection for Minnesota. Get in another interior offensive line to put with Bradbury, and then you also have Brian O'Neill at the right tackle spot, and then Ezra Cleveland at the left tackle spot with the selection.
Yeah, you're seeing the Vikings really, put that focus on that offensive line. Obviously, something they need to do once you commit money to a quarterback, you got to protect that quarterback. Cousins, he's improved as a quarterback on the move this year. He's really, focused on that, but he's still not one of the most mobile QBs in the league. You still need to give him a really sturdy, solid front, and I think Elijah Vera Tucker goes a long way in doing so. At 21 now, a team that could also be looking at that offensive line position to protect Tom Brady, one of the oldest quarterbacks we've seen in quite some time, and a guy who's also not very mobile. Needs to get some protection up front. They did so with Tristan Wirfs last year. Do we see them go on offensive line again?
Yeah, I think once again, this is all about protecting up front, especially in the interior of the offensive line. Creed Humphrey really does that. It's going to give you some versatility. He does a really nice job snapping the ball and getting his hands up quick. His hands are the best part of his game. Watching him, he's got some really quick hands. As soon as he snaps it, he's ready to go. Does a great job communicating with his offensive linemen as well. Does a really nice job passing off protection, passing off a rusher to pick up another guy as well. That's what I really liked about his film. So I think that makes a lot of sense. He's a guy that can play guard. He can play center. A lot of versatility along that offensive line for Tampa when you draft Creed Humphrey.
Yeah, definitely that addition there kind of shores up that front there for Tom Brady. And Tom Brady definitely needs to get a little bit more help from interior pressure and kind of shore up that Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive line. Obviously, their tackles have played fairly well this year, so now improving that guard play, that center play is something of need for them for sure. Going into 22, now we have the Miami Dolphins on the clock yet again. We had them go Jalen Waddle with their first selection, the selection from the Houston Texans. And now at 22, linebacker has been something we've mocked multiple times here, something that's really key in Brian Flores' defense. He's really emerged as one of the better young head coaches. Where do you have Flores and the Dolphins going?
So for the Miami Dolphins, I think Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah makes a lot of sense for them because Brian Flores is a guy who needs some good linebackers in that system. Obviously that they have Van Noy there, but you got to have another linebacker for this Miami Dolphin defense because this team is really up and coming. We've prefaced this many times in this video. We think that this team is, getting really close to being contenders. You got to, keep progressing Tua. You get him a weapon in the first, but keep improving that defense. That's going to be one of your strengths as you progress as a team. And I think getting Owusu-Koramoah really makes a lot of sense at 22.
Yeah, seeing Owusu-Koramoah, he's been really the staple of that Notre Dame defensive team that's going to probably be in the college football playoffs. So if you haven't watched him yet, to our viewers, make sure you do so. You'll get to see him on live television come college football playoff time, even the ACC championship game. If you can find that on television, he'll be in that. So you're looking at a player that you're going to be able to watch beforehand in a live game, and also a guy that is going to really be that staple in that Miami Dolphins defense moving forward. Now into 23, the Indianapolis Colts came off of a narrow win against the Houston Texans this week and have really been in the driver's seat. They've been a strong team. They've competed well with the Tennessee Titans, a team we'll see in a few picks here. Where do you have the Indianapolis Colts going at 23?
The Indianapolis Colts is all about replacing a tackle, just getting some more tackle help because, they're aging at the tackle spot, especially Costanzo, because we think it's very possible that he retires at the end of the season. We're not exactly sure with where he's at, but Christian Darrisaw from Virginia Tech is going to be a really nice selection for them. You're getting your long-term tackle at 23. Obviously, the Colts love drafting offensive line. That's one of the strengths of their team. And you want to make sure that stays a strength. Obviously, if you lose Costanzo, then that's no longer a strength. But you got to keep improving that offensive line for whoever your next quarterback is.
Yeah, regardless of who the QB is there, you're going to be needing some offensive line protection for him. We saw LaRaven Clark go down with an Achilles injury. And now you mentioned the Costanzo possibility of retiring. Here, you're getting some versatility either way, and Darrisaw is going to be a guy that can help protect whoever that QB ends up being long-term. Now into the division rival Tennessee Titans here. Like I had mentioned, they've been really strong this year as well. Derrick Henry has been carrying the rock for them and carrying the team in a lot of different ways offensively. Where do you have the Titans going? I think edge is a position that we both see as their biggest need.
Yeah, Jason Away from Penn State's going to definitely be a guy that you can put on the other side of Harold Landry. And I think for the Tennessee Titans, it's all about improving that defense. And I think in the second round, they very well could be looking at a wide receiver to put alongside of A.J. Brown. We're not exactly sure what's going to happen with Corey Davis, considering that his fifth-year option did get declined. So we're going to see if they can work out a long-term deal after the season. But for right now, you got to get another edge if you're the Tennessee Titans, and Away fits the bill perfectly.
Yeah, we saw Jadeveon Clowney undergo season-ending surgery. Obviously, only came on a one-year deal. So you're looking at a pretty big situational need there for the Tennessee Titans long-term. An edge rusher, someone who can get after the QB, also help the run game, and I think Away does a lot of that for them. Going into pick 25 here, the New York Jets. We had them going Trevor Lawrence, obviously, at pick 1. Now, at 25, his Clemson teammate Travis Etienne's on the board. This is a possible landing spot, albeit I don't think this is the direction we're necessarily going at this point. But do you think offensive weapon is where the Jets go?
Yeah, I think it definitely is, and I think Etienne provides a very strong case. Obviously, he's Trevor Lawrence's teammate, but he is so much more than that. He's an elusive runner. He can break tackles in open field. He can catch balls out of the backfield. But I'm actually going to have them go with Terrace Marshall from LSU. He's a phenomenal red zone threat. He's a guy that has a knack for scoring, and he runs really nice routes. On top of that, he can catch contested passes. And for the New York Jets, it's about getting him another weapon. I don't think you can continue to roll out just Denzel Mims, basically. Jamison Crowder is also there, but you want to get another weapon. And I think Terrace Marshall with Trevor Lawrence could be a top-tier weapon, as a whole.
Yeah, you're looking at that Clemson LSU combination, but there between the two, obviously LSU had faced Clemson in the college football championship last year. Now we're seeing a pairing of the two. Obviously, something to watch there too. We're really high on Travis Etienne. We really like his game, and we're just mocking what we think will happen, not necessarily what we think should happen. We are really high on Etienne. I think he's one of the best players in the class, to be completely honest. It's just running backs don't really have that value through the first half of the first round for the most part. Also, at this point, I just want to remind you guys, if you are enjoying the NFL mock draft up to this point, hit that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to hit the notification bell, as we post a lot of other videos than just the mocks. Obviously, the mocks come out every Monday, but we do post every other day of the week too. Usually a lot of NFL content. We'll also have some more NBA content coming up soon as the NBA season comes closer to the start. And now jumping into the Jacksonville Jaguars at 26. At 2, we have them go Justin Fields. Austin, are you going offensive tackle here to help protect Fields, or are you going defensive side of the football?
There's a lot that the Jaguars need to fix. Obviously, they could look at safety. They do need a tight end because Eifert will be in his contract year next season. But for the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think Samuel Cosmi from Texas is going to be the pick. There's a lot of uncertainty surrounding Cam Robinson, and if the Jaguars feel that they could bring him back as a long-term answer at tackle, obviously, I don't think it's really worked out for Cam Robinson. So I think for the Jaguars to get a tackle at this spot, you really have to do that. Protect your quarterback of the future. You have Jawan Taylor at right tackle. You have Brandon Linder being your center, who's going to be there for a long time. And you're already paying Norwell as your left guard. So for the Jaguars, it's going to be about getting another tackle.
Yeah, definitely. You're seeing Cosmi as a big improvement over Cam Robinson. And quite frankly, that's something you're going to need with Justin Fields. He's obviously a player that can, extend plays with his legs, but you don't want to have to do that every single play, every single snap. So getting Cosmi as that tackle to protect him is something that will be really beneficial for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jumping now into pick 27 with the Buffalo Bills on the clock. Obviously, they kind of ran that division all year long. The Miami Dolphins have really come on late, but I think it's the Bills' division to lose at this point. So we'll probably see them right around this 26 to 28 range. And I think there's one glaring need for them. Austin, where do you have them going?
I have them going cornerback. Obviously, you have Tre'Davious White, but for the Buffalo Bills, you want to keep improving that defense. That defense is really, is one of the strengths of their defense, obviously, but you need to get a cornerback outside of Tre'Davious White, and I think Horn is going to be a phenomenal fit with that Bills team.
Yeah, you're looking at really good value grabbing Horn here at 27, and that number 2 cornerback spot. That's something that I think a lot of teams don't really operate with with being as valuable as it actually is, in my opinion. You're looking at, the strength of your pass defense really comes at your top 2 cornerbacks, how they can match up one-on-one. And now with the Buffalo Bills, you're looking at Horn and White together. That's a really strong duo and something that the Bills will build off of for years to come. Now into 28, the Cleveland Browns here moved to 9-3 on the year, I believe, after a nice win over the Tennessee Titans. Baker Mayfield's been playing really, really great the last few weeks. And has really been a bright spot since the Odell Beckham Jr. injury. Odell Beckham might not be coming back as a Cleveland Brown. He might have played his last game there, depending on kind of what the trade market looks like for him. Where do you have the Browns going at 28?
So for the Cleveland Browns, I think it's all about getting somebody opposite of Myles Garrett. I've kept this theme throughout all of these mock draft videos. Azeez Ojulari is going to be the selection, I think, for the Cleveland Browns. And after watching him, he's one of those guys that has kind of the same frame as Caleb Chase on last year. We saw him obviously go in I think it was number 20 overall or 19 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But now for Azeez, he struggles a little bit against the run just because he doesn't have that big frame to be a run-stopping D end. And he's really, really quick. Don't get me wrong. He's got really good get off, but he's going to struggle a little bit in the run. But he is going to be a phenomenal pass rusher for the Browns. And I think that's just what the Browns are looking for. Get another guy that can rush the passer.
Right. With how dominant Myles Garrett is on that edge, you're looking at, trying to help him out a little bit, get him off of less double teams, and honestly just open up the game for him a little bit. And Azeez Ojulari does that for you. He's going to draw some attention on that opposite edge spot, and he's also going to give you that pass rushing presence that the Browns need. It's going to help their cornerbacks, gets the ball out quicker, and quite frankly, is a perfect selection here for the Cleveland Browns. Going into pick 29 now, we have the Green Bay Packers, a team that has been wide receiver needy a little bit. We've seen Devontae Adams and his greatness, obviously, the last few years. They could really use a number 2 wide receiver, and they could also use a cornerback, obviously, put someone next to Jair Alexander, kind of similar to what we saw with the Buffalo Bills when we addressed J.C. Horn there with that number 2 cornerback spot. Where do you have the Packers going at 29?
I think Shaun Wade's going to be a steal here. And if you're the Green Bay Packers and Shaun Wade is still here at pick 29, you're feeling really, really good. He's a game-changing corner. He's a guy that can obviously flip a game on its ear. We saw that in the Indiana game with his pick 6 that he had. He's got pretty good ball skills and does really, really well out of the slot. That is his biggest strength. Is he's a phenomenal slot corner. And for the Green Bay Packers, it's all about getting, some more corner help. They've had some issues there, but obviously Jair Alexander is a constant for them, but getting Shaun Wade is really, really beneficial with the selection.
Yeah, the addition of a playmaker in that slot defensively, Jair Alexander is really locked in as that, lockdown corner on the outside there for them, the number 1. And now adding Wade gives you a little bit of versatility against certain packages. Obviously, some teams that like to put their number 1 or number 2 receiver in the slot. That's something we see with division rival Minnesota Vikings quite a bit with Adam Thielen, and Shaun Wade will help address that matchup concern. Obviously, we saw the Vikings get the better of the Green Bay Packers earlier this year, and I think Shaun Wade long-term would really fill in a lot of their holes on that defense. Now into number 30, we have the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that many think might go defense. Also, we see wide receiver as a need here, but there's one glaring need in our eyes for them based on kind of where their depth chart sits this year going into next year. Obviously, Kalichi Assembly could be out. Austin, what position is that, and where do you have them going?
Yeah, you nailed it right on the head there. It's going to be the interior, the offensive line in particular, the left and right guard spots. So getting Trey Smith here from Tennessee is definitely going to be the selection. You have to protect Patrick Mahomes, and you also want to be able to run the ball more efficiently. So a way of doing that is, getting a guard in the first round here, and then maybe in the second round or third round, you could look at another guard possibly, because you definitely need to have another guard for the Kansas City Chiefs, and getting one here at 30 fills arguably their biggest need on their team.
Yeah, looking at the addition of Trey Smith here, you're getting insurance policy for your $500 million quarterback, but you're also really improving that offense. You're improving that run game, like you had mentioned, behind former first round pick Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And now at this point, the Chiefs their offense just keeps getting scarier. Honestly, they're, in my opinion, the favorite to win the championship this year. Again, and they're, with the mock draft, the rich just keep getting richer here. And now moving into 31, the New Orleans Saints, obviously Drew Brees has been banged up. We've seen some Taysom Hill. He's, really showing his skills as a runner, but that's kind of more of as a gadget guy. Does that play into your decision here, Austin, with who you mocked at 31?
Yeah, so I have a video here. We're gonna have a card for you to see that video about the Saints quarterback situation. But taking a look at it and kind of summarizing what I had said in that video, for the New Orleans Saints, you're not exactly sure if Taysom Hill's the long-term answer. We don't know if Jameis Winston's the answer. Obviously, Jameis Winston hasn't gotten any run in the offense this entire season. I wonder if that's for a reason, or it's possible that they're looking at they're going to extend him, but at a lower contract, hoping to get multi-year, so they don't have to pay him the big money if he works out. So it's all going to kind of depend on how the Saints feel. I don't know if Taysom Hill is going to be the long-term answer. So I'm actually going to go Mac Jones from the University of Alabama. He has played so well this year. He has really played himself into a first-round pick worthy selection. And it's hard to argue the stats, the eye test. He passes it all. Really like his game overall. Plus, the Saints get that fifth-year option, which is extremely crucial for a quarterback. So you don't have to pay him the big money in that, quote, fifth year because it's a set dollar amount.
Right, that fifth year is really important for the Saints here. If Drew Brees comes back, you're still getting that one extra year of control. So you're looking at maybe a 4-year window for Mac Jones to kind of start and give you what he is. And then talking about that fifth-year option here, I think that'll kind of play into who you mocked at 32, Austin. I think that the Steelers are a very complete team, could be looking to address a position just so they don't have to pay a guy and continue to keep that defense kind of intact. Austin, where do you have them going at 32?
Yeah, I think there's some ways that the Steelers can go. I mean, they have a really solid team all, through and through, but I think they're going to take Travis Etienne. I think the Steelers are a smart organization. They're going to take arguably the best player available here with Travis Etienne. He's a phenomenal player, and he's going to fit in with the Steelers really well. Obviously, we remember those Pittsburgh Steelers offenses with Le'Veon Bell. I mean, they were just dynamic. So to get Travis Etienne here at 32, you're feeling really good about yourself. I think the Jets were a threat to take him with their 25th overall pick. But for the Pittsburgh Steelers, you get them at 32, and you're going to get a dynamic player.
Yeah, you're looking at that last pick of the first round, something similar we saw last year with Clyde Edwards-Helaire going to the Kansas City Chiefs. And now Etienne going to the Steelers, he's going to be a problem there. He'll fit right next to Roethlisberger, like you had mentioned. And he's really going to be, an elite weapon for them, a player that's going to give them a lot of different options in that offense. And I think the Jets at 33 are kind of disappointed that they won't be able to grab him in the second round. Speaking of that second round, we will have that video coming out. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell to catch the second round of this mock draft. It'll be a continuation based off these first round picks. Here's a quick overview of the selections. I'm just going to scroll through them real quick so you guys can see them all again. And we really want to thank you guys for all the support. We really do appreciate it. We've grown really quickly. We can't do it without you guys. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. We don't want you to miss any of our content. We don't want you to miss out on the journey here with us. Thank you guys, and we'll catch you in the next video.